Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I thought I'd mark the 50th anniversary of the concert for Bangladesh. Madison Square Garden, New York City. Two concerts performed, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. George Harrison was the mastermind behind this and set the precedent for all charity concerts which have happened since. So he's very much a pioneer. And this video release this DVD release was gloriously done. No complaints at all about this. You know, not only did it have like things like the Apple sticker and 6 postcards included, but it had a bit like Concert for George. It was like a double DVD, one with the concert and one with the extended commentary from people like Leon Russell, who looked like a aged Father Christmas giving his input. And this was a historic concert, and I don't really want to dwell on. I know I did a video on should the Beatles have got together for this concert in '71, but that was only prompted by Peter Doggett mentioning it in his book You Never Give Me Your Money. I think this concert as it is, the CD, is perfect, or more or less as good as we could have got. And although Eric Clapton was still pretty much on heroin, and had to fly him over and fix him up with heroin when he arrived in New York, and they weren't sure whether he was going to show up. Similarly, George didn't know whether Bob Dylan was going to show up. But then, when I would love to have been in the audience, particularly in the front few rows of this concert, although the camera work on the video is not brilliant. I think some of them might have been a bit stoned or something, because the camera angles leave a lot to be desired compared to your normal concert footage of these days. But that's a fairly minor criticism. This is a historic event, and it was George's highlight of his career, really, bringing all these people together. And not only Eric Clapton and Bob Dylan, but also Ringo Starr, Billy Preston, Leon Russell, Ravi Shankar. So yeah, I think this opens very strongly with, well, the Ravi Shankar stuff opens it, and that's, if I'm honest, not my favourite part of the concert, but it was an important message to send, because his roots were very much in Indian music, and I appreciate that. But the highlight for me is when the band came on and they did Wah Wah, and considering they hadn't had much time to rehearse, they do storming versions of most of the tracks they play. None of them, I would say, superior to the album version, but that's probably in common with a lot of live albums. They're not quite reach the standard of the album, but it was a good showcase for George, turning up in his white suit with the orange shirt underneath and doing Wah Wah. Then he does a version of My Sweet Lord, which again is not as majestic as the album version, but it's still an important statement, and he's got about 50 singers singing with him on it, and it's pretty glorious. Waiting on You All, another upbeat number from All Things Must Pass, is covered next. And then Billy Preston gets his solo spot and almost steals the show with That's the Way God Planned It, when he gets up from his piano and starts dancing around the stage. It really is quite joyous. And then when Ringo comes on and does It Don't Come Easy, it's just like, you think you're in heaven. Well, I wasn't there, but even watching the concert these days, or when I first watched it, it's just joyous to see two Beatles on stage. And even though Ringo forgets some of the words, it's pretty memorable. And then George performs Beware of Darkness, which is one of the greatest tracks on All Things Must Pass. And then he brings out Eric for While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And Eric had apparently brought the wrong guitar, you know, the guitar where it was difficult to play the solo. But he does a creditable job, and it's a good version. The slight low point of the whole set for me is the Leon Russell set. Maybe they could have given Badfinger a headline moment. I'm not sure, maybe it was a bit early in their career, but I think I would have appreciated that. As it is, Leon Russell does a pretty decent version of Jumping Jack Flash, and then a quite elongated version of Young Blood, which is quite good, but not the best. And then Pete Ham joins George on stage and does a superb guitar, the two of them on acoustic guitar doing Here Comes the Sun. And that's, if you think that's brilliant, and then you don't know what's coming, because, and it must have been amazing to be in the crowd when George said, "I'd like to bring on a friend of us all, Mr. Bob Dylan." And Bob comes on, and it's the first time he'd played live, more or less, for 5 years, and he does 5 of his all-time classics, more or less solo, but Leon Russell on bass and George on acoustic help him out, and Ringo on tambourine. He does Hard Rain's Gonna Fall brilliantly. I don't know how he remembers the words of all those verses. I mean, maybe he had a crib sheet, but I wasn't aware of it. I've never been aware of Bob having crib sheets in his concerts, but maybe he does, and it's out of eyeshot. But Takes a Lot to Laugh, Takes a Train to Cry as a great version, Blowing in the Wind, masterful, Mr. Tambourine Man, and then culminating in his classic from Blonde on Blonde, Just Like a Woman. So that's probably, if push comes to shove, I would have to say that's the highlight of the whole concert, and I'm sure George would agree with me, because he was a bit self-deprecating and always full of praise for Bob Dylan. But then George comes back and does a pretty creditable version of something, and then the song which prompted the concert in the first place, Bangla Desh, which is performed with gusto, and it's good to play this concert with your hi-fi, turn it up loud, and it must have been just amazing to be there. I'm not sure how many of you out there were there. I would like to hear your thoughts if you were there. I understand concert tickets were going for a lot of money the day or 2 days before the concert. But out of all the live concerts I would have liked to have been at, this is very close to the top of the list. And as I say, this DVD has a wonderful second disc where you've got interviews with Eric Clapton, Billy Preston, Leon Russell, and it's just really well done. And well, it's 50 years. Can you believe it? It's 50 years. And no, I don't think the Beatles should have reformed for this concert. I think it's just George's moment. And even though there were complications about where the money went, and John Lennon called it caca, saying the money got lost somewhere in the mix. But I think there was a hint of jealousy about that, because, George's achievement is monumental, and the other Beatles must have felt a bit envious of George pulling off such a magnificent concert, and all credit to him. And he would later, this fired his enthusiasm, and then he would later do a tour of the States in '74, which didn't go quite so well, because his image had kind of soured a little bit by then, and he'd lost his voice, and that concert footage for the '74 tour is to this day unavailable. But I don't think it's as good as, or half as good as, the stuff on this album. So, monumental achievement in the history of rock music, concert for Bangla Desh. Well done, George Harrison. Well done, all the people who contributed. Badfinger on acoustic guitar in the background, Jim Keltner on drums, Ringo. Leon Russell, just a monumental event, and it's 50 years, if you can believe it. So thank you for watching. See you next time.